Okay, we're rolling now. Okay,
Sounds good.
sounds good. Okay, so um, basically, I'm going to talk to you about just in general how your prior experiences impacted your writing identity or your writing processes today. That's like the basic prompt. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I just want you to explain, elaborate, blah blah blah. I'm probably going to come up with follow up questions as I go. So just
Hey.
so you know. Okay, so to start, what is your name, age, level of education, and/or major, and where did you grow up?
Okay. My name is Niyati Patege. I am 18 years old. I currently have a high school degree, and I'm in the first year of my undergraduate at the University of Central Florida. And I am currently a film major. And I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, cool. Really quickly, I just thought it was kind of funny. The captions thought your last name was Plague. The captions like
I take that
it like
as a racist remark.
it like switched so many times. It like switched like 4 or 5 times. I watched it for like a minute. Okay, I just thought that was really funny. I wanted to bring it up. Anyways, okay.
That's the best iteration I've ever heard.
I know. Okay. Um. All right. How many languages do you speak, and which ones do you use most often?
Okay, so I speak quite a bit of languages. I speak English, and then I have a lot of Indian languages that I've grown up with, which is Marathi, Hindi. I can understand a good amount of Kannada, and I can vaguely understand a little bit of Tamil.
Okay.
On my day-to-day life, I mean, I'm living here in America and everything, so I use English most often, but typically when I'm with my parents and the family, we speak a lot of Marathi in my house.
Okay. Who taught you? Did your parents teach you?
Yes. So my parents taught me Marathi, and that was all we learned at home, and I only learned English through like school.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. You only learned English through school. Do you feel like speaking different languages like hinders, helps, or doesn't impact the way that you write today?
I think way that I write, I would say it helps in the sense of like, um, yeah, I would say the majority is like being able to speak so many languages. It definitely helps as far as like creativity in writing, and also mutual intelligibility between languages. And also, I feel like aside from the writing aspect of it, when coming to the world, I feel like I'm able to pick up other languages more quickly because of having a multiple intelligibility background already.
Right. Okay. Nice. Um, did you grow up around writers, or were you more of a black sheep in your community?
Oh, definitely more of a black sheep.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family does anything like what I do. And even like growing up, like my parents, were immigrants to America, so their English has always been a little slower.
Mm-hmm.
So me being the writer that I am has very much been.
Gotcha. Did it take you a while? Did it take you a while to um, fully like adapt to writing in English here?
I wouldn't say so. Nothing noticeable because again, like I was learning English like through school, but in a sense that I was able to pick it up pretty quickly, just as everybody else did. I mean, even to this day, I have trouble spelling a couple of things just because of like the way it sounds whenever my parents say it, like what I've grown up around. So like, there's still a couple words that'll trip me up.
Okay.
But I don't think that slowed my learning in the developmental stages, at least.
Oh, okay, cool. That's good. That's good. What kind of writing do you do today?
I do a lot of writing today. I do academic writing for schoolwork and whatnot. I have assignments that I'm always submitting, essays that I write, research papers, and then also for like work and like what I want to do is I do a lot of scripts. And so, because that's kind of like where my writing focus is, it's with screenwriting. I write screenplays, I'm writing short stories, novels, that kind of stuff. So, a good kind of balance between academic research and also creative work.
Oh, cool. Do you prefer any kinds of writing to each other? Like, are there any types of writing that you would much rather do than different types? I can elaborate if you need me to.
Yeah, let's hear a little more about that.
Okay, so for example, so I know that I really struggle with like a lot of like academic writings, especially whenever it gets super super like niche and like you have to get into a very tiny little like idea of something so central. Like I definitely prefer writing, um, like I like reading responses and everything. The whole 300, 400 word reading responses about a given topic, you know. Um, but sometimes I really hate it, and then sometimes I find it so much easier for to just send a text message. You know, like are there any like different types of writings that you prefer to other ones?
Right. So obviously, texting is one of the easiest forms of writing
Right.
in this digital world of communication. But personally, the best connection I can make with that is I enjoy and prefer writing scripts a lot more than novels. Because my thing with it is like, I mean, I've written a couple of novels and like short stories here and there, but I find that having to like dive into the extremely descriptive stuff, I feel like whenever I'm writing, I have a very vivid image in my brain,
Right.
and that always translates out best in a script versus when I'm like writing a short story or novel. Because I feel like with scripts, yeah, I feel like with scripts I can talk about like where the camera is tilting to or what angle this is at or the lighting in it in such more of like a text in a technical and like precise concept versus having to do like the extremely descriptive version of it in other writing and then risk being like too redundant. And I feel like it's bad writing on my part.
I know what you mean. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. So on that note, do you feel like going to university had any effect on like your like the way that you write now?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So I'm currently taking a class called Foundations of Story, and the premise of that whole class is it's one of my film major classes, and the whole thing is about more about the context of your writing, content of your writing, sorry, and how to formulate that in a way that's best appeasable to the audience. And I feel like through that class, I've learned a lot of things that have like really made my script writing a lot more precise. Mm-hmm. And I feel like now whenever I read my scripts that I've written, like say the past like 4 months that we've been in college so far, I feel like they make a lot more sense when you're reading them visually than some of my scripts I've written in the past. So I've seen a change in my writing in the short period of time in this semester that we've had so far.
I like that. So going back to hindrance on your writing, you said that you saw like a really big change in the way that you started writing from the beginning of when we started here to now. Do you think that there were some practices in writing that we did in high school, with our school being like a school centered around like science and medicine and everything? Do you feel like there's any like writing practices we did in high school that sort of slowed your development in writing here?
That is an interesting question. I like that question. So the answer to this question is yes. I feel like there definitely has been a bit of a learning curve in the sense that we come from a very STEM-focused school, right? Mm-hmm. So all the writing I've done pre-college was very academic, very like,
objective.
It was a lot of a very objective, like right. Research-based, very scientific. And I feel like when it comes to that, there's a process in writing when you have to be extremely, like you have to be really careful with the explanations. Mm-hmm. And you kind of go into this very like technical jargon kind of perspective. And so I am still trying to unlearn this where it's like whenever I'm doing creative writing or even like small assignments for like English class, for example, I end up slipping into that very like almost robotic voice a little bit, and learning to take that robotic voice out and put in like my creative Niyati Patege writer voice is right. Something that I'm trying to change to, because I'm no longer talking in the same like very scientific context. Mm-hmm. Now I'm doing work about like movies, right? Like that's what my research is now. So that kind of transference has been interesting, and I kind of have to stop myself from like using a lot of passive voice here and there.
Right. Do you feel like you sound like yourself in your academic writing now?
I would say now I do.
Now?
A lot more than I used to.
Okay. Yes. So Niyati a year ago was writing from somebody else's type of voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Niyati today sounds like herself.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. So since we're talking about like the shift in writing from like high school to college, do you feel like there's any mentors like along the way that shaped the way you write, whether it be high school teachers, middle school teachers, or professors today, or anybody else? It doesn't have to be a teacher.
Yes. No. I think one of the most notable mentors for me, somebody that you also know very well, Elena, is our high school English teacher, Miss Anderson.
So real.
Love Miss Anderson.
Oh my
She taught
God.
English in the 10th grade. I had her for AP English Literature in senior year. She was my first film teacher, lots of stuff. And she has seen quite a bit from my college admissions essays to assignments I've written in her class to like little bits of film scripts. And so she was really influential in that. And also she was the person that kind of like made me feel a bit more motivated and brave enough to attempt going to film school and like doing film in college and whatnot. So she has been very, very influential in that and shaping my writing process. But then also like my friends are pretty great. I have some pretty fantastic people that are always willing to read my work and give me feedback, and that's always helped and still does to this day.
Okay, cool. All right, so now that we're talking about like the way that your writing has changed and like things that have impacted your writing, do you feel like can you tell me about some writing assignments in particular that you were like really proud of?
Ooh, okay. So writing assignments that I've completed as of right now. One that I look back on was a paper that we wrote for our senior seminar class in senior year of high school, where we had to compile a manuscript of a semester-long research project that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And while this does fall into that category of like more technical scientific work, I find myself to constantly go back to that and like I'm really proud of kind of how it came out, especially for somebody like me who is not a STEM student. That's not my field. I was doing very technical discoveries in that. It was all about like my paper was about how microplastic concentration affects algae growth, and that in itself is such a STEM kid.
Yeah, every single word. Oh my God.
That paper hurt, and you know.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of how I did that. I'm proud of how compiled it was. I'm proud of how good it sounded. And I think I sound very professional. And while it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I'm definitely very, very proud of that assignment. Additionally, now there's an assignment that I'm working on in my college class, my college English class, that is also a research paper, but I'm doing it about how Asian stereotypes have changed in media through the years. And it's basically tracking Asian movies and TVs from when Asian men were typically portrayed as very nerdy and like sexually undesirable to now where they're immensely fetishized. And
so real.
I love how that paper is coming out so far.
I want to read that when you're done.
Really, I'm so excited for it because like movies and TV, my whole thing, that is my exact existence. Asian, that is my exact existence. So I feel like there's so much more passion in this one than in the one about algae growth. And while it's still in the works, I'm proud of all the components of it. And then additionally, there's just a couple of scripts that I've churned out within the past couple of months that I've had to submit for assignments in film class and for my Foundations of Story class. And I like how that work is looking so far.
Okay, cool. Well, definitely send me that paper whenever you're done. That sounds really interesting, actually.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. Okay. So since you're talking about how Asian films have evolved, right? I know that you had a lot of influence with Bollywood growing up. I wanted to ask you, like, is there anything that sort of led you to wanting to do writing for a living or film for a living? This can be anything. This can be people. This can be media. This could be an aversion to other things. Like, is there any like specific things that like pushed you into the film industry more than anything else?
For sure. So, I mean, I think Bollywood is one of the greatest factors in my life that have always made me want to do film, more in the sense that, like, when I was younger, I wasn't really, like, my parents really wanted to protect our Indian culture in the household. So I wasn't allowed to, like, really watch, like, Disney Channel growing up.
Right.
Like, I didn't watch, like, all the shows, like, Victorious, Liv and Maddie, whatever. I grew up on Bollywood movies because that was the thing that my parents used as, like, this is how we're going to protect our culture. And when I came to an age where you're supposed to socially be able to connect with others on things like movies and TV, I found that it was a little hard for me because I didn't watch the same things as others. And so I kind of tried to catch myself up on American pop culture in a way so I could connect with people. And movies and TVs have always been that thing that I'm able to like connect with people on, and it's those stories. And so in a way it's sort of a clutch, but also like growing up watching all these movies, I remember just watching them in complete awe and being like, I want to be a part of something that makes me feel like this.
Yeah. Sorry, cat just walked in.
I want to be a part of. You're good.
Sorry.
I'm like, I want to be a part of a big production, and I want to make something colorful, and I want to have as much fun as those people on screen feel like they're having. And additionally, I've always been a writer. I was always somebody like writing short little stories. I don't even know. You probably remember me in the 6th grade having like that notebook and constantly walking around writing stories here and there. So like that's always been a thing, and I have an overactive imagination that's constantly going. So writing helps with that. But the central reason of why I do film and TV is because I feel like it's a wonderful way to tell stories, and it's the one that is greatest to connect with people on. It's like everybody's willing to sit around and watch a movie about a dark and heavy topic versus just having a conversation about it. I feel like it's a great like thing that scratches the barrier a little bit, and it's fun, you know? They make you feel good.
Okay, cool. So earlier I asked you about do you feel like speaking multiple languages like hindered the way you write today? And you said no to that. Just now though, you said not being caught up on American pop culture sort of hindered like your assimilation to like American school system and everything. Can you talk more about like the differences there?
Yeah. So I think writing, I think about it a bit more objectively in the sense of like speaking multiple languages never stopped me from being a good writer.
Right.
Like that was never there. But if we're talking about like social development and like being a child and wanting to have friends, like I feel like that's more so where there was a bit of a hindrance. And I recognize like that there was like, you know, a certain point in my life where I had a real rejection of my Indian identity because that kind of, you know, it was like those little elementary school bullies being like, your food smells weird. Like, no, I don't know who Shah Rukh Khan is. Like, let's talk about the Jonas Brothers, you know? And I was like, I don't know who that is. And so I had that kind of like weird moment. So me coming from my very Indian background, watching Bollywood movies, like, you know, I didn't watch Disney princess movies till I was probably like 12. I kid you not. So because of that all, I kind of like hated being Indian. And I feel like, you know, a lot of Asian kids, like we have that kind of moment of like,
we all have that phase.
It makes us different, right? I'm like, oh, the melanin doesn't come off. Like,
right.
And, you know, when you're a kid, you don't understand. So you kind of become averse to it. And then I feel like my journey with it is coming to the middle school that we went to, which was very culturally diverse, very, you know, racially diverse. You know, we had a huge kind of, you know, spread of people from all over the place. And I felt like coming to our middle school and also our high school is everybody was celebrated for being different. And it was like for the first time in my life, my food wasn't sticky. It was what everybody wanted to try.
Right.
And me speaking, you know, 5 languages, it wasn't weird. It was cool. It was like, oh my God, like you could speak 5 languages. So it was the first time where I was celebrated for my identity rather than excluded for it.
Okay.
And then I had a long journey of kind of coming back to it. But again, you know, I don't think of it, I try not to think of it as an hindrance anymore. And there's a lot to go with that journey. But as far as in context of like socially, like that's just a journey I feel like everybody has a version of.
Right. Okay, yeah. So now that we've gotten into more of like a self-identity, like away from writing, I want to ask, are you familiar with the concept of code switching or code meshing?
Yes.
Yes? Cool. Do you feel like you do a lot of that in your daily life, or do you feel like you do a lot of that whenever, like when you go back home compared to here?
Very much so.
Okay.
Oh, for sure.
I figured.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Do you want me to like expand on
yes,
that?
Yes, do, definitely.
Okay. Yes. Oh my goodness, code switching. I catch myself doing it. not while I'm here. I feel like while I'm here in college or just among my friend groups, like there's a version of Niyati that you all know, and that has become a lot more constant than she was in previous life. But like when I go with my parents, or it's like this past weekend was Diwali, and so I was back in Jacksonville for that. And I had to go to like Indian parties, and we have all the Indian aunties and uncles. So there's a definite different version of me that comes out. She has a bit of a thicker accent on, and it's like this very different persona that gets put on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, especially when you're with somebody who's not Indian, and they're like, "Hey, like, who's that? What's going on over there?" And that's the first time that I actually become aware of what I'm doing.
Okay, interesting. Do you feel like going to public school whenever you were a kid and still trying to assimilate to the whole American lifestyle? Do you feel like and this is before you knew like the term like code switching or anything. I'm assuming like right now I'm talking about like 12-year-old Niyati. Do you feel like 12-year-old Niyati did a lot of code switching?
I think she definitely did, and she had no idea she was doing it.
Right.
Especially when we talk about the whole like rejection of Indian identity and wanting to assimilate to, you know, like 12-year-old friend groups.
Right.
There was like, I don't know, this 2000. When were we 12? I don't remember. Like
2015, 2016, maybe.
Yeah, it's like this Pinterest aesthetic. Wanted to constantly be drinking like vanilla Starbucks frappuccinos. I was like that 12-year-old. That's what I wanted to be.
Right.
So when it comes to like making friend groups and stuff, she was doing it all the time. And then especially when we talk about like family life, then for me, the very two stark different things. And I like to think now they're a bit more seamless in the sense of like, you know, I've grown a lot as a person. I've grown up.
Mm-hmm.
One thing. So the version that I would give to like peers versus to my family are now a little bit more similar. But back then, it was two completely different people, and I don't even think I was really aware of all the code switching that I was doing.
That makes sense. Yeah. Do you feel more comfortable? Like I'm trying to figure out a way to phrase this. Do you feel more comfortable code switching now more because you're more like assured in your own identity? Do you feel like it's not as big of a deal to code switch?
That's interesting because I feel like for me, like best case scenarios, I don't have to do that.
Right.
And the ideal is that I can just be my most true self in front of all these groups of people and it be okay. So at least when it comes to like my direct family, I feel like I'm trying to do that less and less in hopes of like, you know, getting closer to them. And, you know, my family and I, we've had our own path, and now I think we're trying to get to a place of understanding each other better. So out of respect for that, like I try to be less of this completely different, perfect Indian daughter for them. But then there's just social situations that you get put into where it's like, you know, you've got some uncles and aunties that can be hard to deal with, and that's just the truth of life. Right. And so there is this different percentage put on as more of like a protective face more than anything else.
Right. Do you feel like that protective face transfers to your writing at all?
That is interesting. Go into detail with that a little bit more.
So I know the writing we did in high school was very STEM related, everything. Do you feel like, but today the writing that you do now is a lot more what you're interested in, right? Do you feel like that sort of protective face came on a lot in high school, and do you see it less now that you're here in your writing?
I think the best way to kind of go about that is that the writing that I do for academic purposes versus the creative writing that I do for being a film major for my work, those are two very different things. And I feel like having creative writing as an outlet, writing these scripts and, you know, making all these stories, I feel like that's the place where I'm allowed to let that protective face go away. So when it comes to like the scripts that I'm writing, the stories that I'm creating, those are like the truest ideas that are coming out of my brain, and that is my outlet. So there is no making it look nice for somebody else.
Right.
I'm not trying to mask anything. I'm not trying to hide anything. So when it comes to that kind of writing, it is a much truer kind of exploration of myself and of the characters that I'm creating. When it comes to academic research and academic writing, I feel like there is just a professional front that we put on that just ends up translating out, but I don't think that's like a protective face in any way, if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. All right, I think I got everything I needed.
Oh my god, is that it? Are we done?
I think that's it, yeah.
Hi, Niyati.
Oh, hi, Kat.
Hello. You're slaying.
Oh, thank you so much,
Yay. All right, cool. I got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic. We're all done. I'm assuming you're gonna have to cut by now.
Well, I will in a second, but okay.
Yes, eventually.
Got it.
That was cool. Cool questions, Elena.
Yay.